The ANC in Kwazulu-Natal has urged leaders to give branches the space to nominate their preferred candidates. The race for the top positions in the party is officially on as nomination processes open today. The ANC KZN Secretary, Bheki Mtolo, has spoken against the pronouncement of leaders without consulting branches. Limpopo, the Eastern Cape and the Northwest are some of the provinces backing the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, for another term as party leader. The ANC set to hold its 55th National Conference in December. Let's take a listen.
Today is officially opening of nominations of those who will lead the ANC in the next 5 years. And what does this mean? It means now the opportunity is given by the National Executive Committee to ANC branches to nominate those who think they will lead at national level, starting from the President to the last 86th additional member of the National Executive Committee. Now, we must allow branches of the ANC to do that work without any pressure and influence from anyone. And then in terms of the ANC constitution and guidelines is that once that it happens, then the province, each province receives the consolidated nominations from branches. And then there are people that, let's talk about the President, for example. A candidate that has received the highest nomination of branches, then it becomes a provincial nomination. Then it is when that the province can now pronounce and say, yes, this is our candidate. Now the excitement of going around pronouncing without branches having set and determined who they think they will must lead the ANC is unfortunate because it's trying to influence branches and impose leadership on branches.
All right, let's unpack this further now and bring in our politics reporter, Ziyanda Ngcobo, who is on the wall for us to talk us through this important period for the party, Ziyanda. And so, Bheki Mtolo, they're emphasizing that the ANC conferences are conferences of branches. Yeah. And so what becomes important is for those branches to be allowed to express their preferences. Let's start at the top for the position of president. Are we likely to have a contender or someone who's going to contest the position against the incumbent, President Ramaphosa?
So it would seem for now, and I think it's important to say for now because the politics of the ANC are continuously changing, and as the branches express themselves, for now it would seem that there isn't a contender for the position of president. But remembering that these are branch nominations, so there is the process during the conference where, as we've seen in other conferences in the build-up to this process, where leaders are nominated from the floor. And this is also a possibility, and it's also been a strategy by those, the so-called RET faction, to let the processes take place because they usually deem, some of the positions to have been imposed by the leadership, whether it's at a provincial or at a national level. But the branches themselves, in that plenary session, they nominate from the floor. So for now, it doesn't seem that way, but we don't know what could happen at that conference.
The deputy president's position, a big talking point at the moment. Why?
I think this is the first time, and I stand to be corrected, we could put our heads together, but it's the first time it would seem that the position of deputy president is so hotly contested. I think for now there are about 5 names, I should say, that are vying. In fact, let's pull up those boards. The first being Mamoloko Kuba. You'll know that there's a push to actually have both the gender and the generational mix. She would likely be on Cyril Ramaphosa's slate, and she's also currently the ANC's head of policy and transformation. Then you have someone like Paul Mashatile Koli, who's very interesting for many reasons. One, he's gotten the backing from the ANC in Limpopo to become deputy president, but in the Eastern Cape, there are parts of the Eastern Cape that are saying Oscar Mabuyane should be deputy president, and those who supported Babalo Matigizela in the provincial conference are saying that Paul Mashatile should be deputy president. So you see then the divisions within the provinces also playing out in terms of the support for deputy president, and he's been an acting Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General, which some are saying has actually put him in good stead to, sort of use those positions to amass power through the positions within the Secretariat. You are, of course, the custodian of the branches at both those levels.
Yeah.
Then you have someone like Ronald Lamola, whose name I think started being bandied about late last year. He is also a former Youth League Deputy President, and his name is also being pushed by the Renew 2022 campaign, which is that of the President to become the President Cyril Ramaphosa's deputy. His backers are pushing for that. Then you have David Mabuza. You'll recall how he came to power, which is why I'm saying, for all we know, he could be the contender of the president to become, the next president. But for now, he is on the slate to become deputy president. And as I've mentioned, it's the first time we're seeing this. I don't think it's necessarily an indictment on the deputy president, in terms of him having left a vacuum. I just think that it's deemed as a foregone conclusion that the current president of the ANC will get a second term. And then lastly, you'll know the former health minister, he's also an ANC NEC member. Some within Kwazulu-Natal are saying that he should become the deputy president, and as I've mentioned, he's got supports from KZN and parts of the Eastern Cape. So, very interesting picture emerging there. But as Bheki Mtolo is saying, so far it's things that are being bandied about by lobbyists, but the numbers are all what it ultimately boils down to.
Ziyanda, as we conclude this, it's going to be important to talk about gender parity, because the ANC's top positions at national level, you have the top 6. At provincial level, you have the so-called top 5. The ANC coming in for a hammering, particularly in the provincial conferences that have taken place, that there is a lack of women leaders there. That's going to be important. That
was actually discussed at the ANC's policy conference, where it was actually decided that at all levels of the organization that there should be the so-called zebra approach within the organization. So which is why, for instance, someone like Mamuluko Kubai, some are saying puts her in good stead because she covers both the gender parity and the generational mix. But also when you speak about the gender parity, it's also on the basis of merit and not just placing women in the positions within the secretariat, where usually it's either you become you deputize the Secretary General within the organization. The air calls for there to be real change and effect, especially when it comes to Deputy President. We've only seen a woman become Deputy President once in the form of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcobo. So some are saying this needs to change.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much, putting us into perspective there about the big talking points as this nomination process of the ANC officially begins today.